I'm Jordan Hatfield. This is Faster Film Critic. Today on the show, we talk Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning with Kolter and Chase Fugel. The Final Reckoning is a 2025 action film, the 8th in the Mission Impossible franchise, and part 2 in a 2-part story. It is directed by Christopher McQuarrie, stars Tom Cruise, Haley Atwell, Ving Rhames, and Simon Pegg. Is this the final time we see Tom Cruise play Ethan Hunt? Impossible. Get in! We're going cinephilin'. Guys, this is the 3rd week of Mission Impossible. You burned out yet?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Are you?
Yep.
Oh my goodness gracious. Guys, I've had fun with this franchise. I've had fun diving into Ethan Hunt and all of his impossible missions.
Yeah.
And hearing all sorts of shit from Chase about how much he hates it.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So do you guys think this is the last time we'll see Tom Cruise play Ethan Hunt?
No, he's going to play Ethan Hunt in some other movie. He won't be named Ethan Hunt, but he'll be playing something, the same shit in the same kind of shit. So.
I think Tom Cruise likes to pretend he's always playing Ethan Hunt.
Yeah.
I think he's always playing Tom Cruise. I think Ethan Hunt just is Tom Cruise.
Maybe that's what it is.
Much.
But The Final Reckoning did feel like a farewell to Tom Cruise.
They sure tried.
Are you guys James Bond fans?
Yeah.
James Bond fans?
Yeah.
You guys like James
yeah.
Bond?
It's essentially what this is.
I haven't seen enough.
Chase, you got to remedy that because James Bond is great. I love James Bond. But in No Time to Die, which was Daniel Craig's last time playing James Bond, they killed him.
Yeah.
And I was so pissed. I hate that movie. It is my least favorite James Bond movie. Moonraker, which is considered to be the worst. It's the one where James Bond goes to space. They're trying to tap into that Star Wars thing.
Right.
Terrible. It's absolutely terrible. I prefer Moonraker to them killing James Bond in No Time to Die.
Wow.
Funny, though, because in Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, I expected them to kill Ethan Hunt.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm not going to lie, guys, I was disappointed they didn't. I thought that would have been a great way to end this franchise, to send Ethan off in a blaze of glory.
Yeah.
Like, finally, for the first time in 8 films, his parachute doesn't open and he, like, right into the ground. That's it. Bye, Ethan. It felt like they were saying goodbye to Tom Cruise throughout this entire film. And then when it ends, you realize, wait, there's another one coming.
I don't even know where to start.
There's always got to be another one.
Well, in 2, it's like Luther dies. It's almost, there's some potential foreshadowing there. It's like, okay, he keeps telling Simon Pegg's character that you're the team leader now and you got to take over. Yeah. So yeah, there's a couple of teases, with the end stunt that just would not end implies that Ethan Hunt's parachute starts on fire and it's like, oh, that's it. He's trying to get his reserve chute out. That's not working. And it's like, and in the middle of him falling through the sky, he's doing the thing with the thing to try to stop the thing. And it's like, well, okay, he's going to fall. And then, can we move on now? Nope. What happened?
I don't know. Great question. Can you imagine this franchise with Simon Pegg being the Ethan Hunt character?
No.
That's not going to work.
No, it wouldn't work. No.
So if they were trying to pass the torch off, man, it blew out.
Yes.
But I think Tom Cruise is going to be back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
That said, I don't know when he'll be back because he's signed on to a number of different movies over the next couple years. The man's like 63 years old?
Yeah, early 60s.
He's filming other things. He's signed up for other projects. I don't know when and how he's going to get back to Mission Impossible unless he's 80-something.
If he does, it should be as like a mentor kind of thing.
Kind of the Top Gun Maverick
role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, Maverick 3 is in the works.
Yeah.
That's another one he's working on.
That makes sense, sure. But all he's got to do is sit there.
With all the films that he is attached to, have you heard about the Doug Liman film coming out? Let me tell you this.
Yeah.
The production partners are Universal,
Okay.
SpaceX, and NASA.
Oh.
What?
Well, I'm interested already.
So it's a sci-fi film that takes place in outer space. Obviously, most of it will be filmed here on Earth. However, there will be a portion of it that is filmed on the International Space Station.
That's cool.
And it will be the very first film to ever be filmed in outer space.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm in.
I'll be there for that.
But let's talk Final Reckoning. What'd you guys think of this film?
I mean, look, there's not a movie star alive. I mean, there's not a lot of movie stars left, period, in the traditional sense. But there's not a movie star alive that's doing the kinds of things that Tom Cruise is doing to kind of really sell action on the big screen. You can tell he's proud of it. You can tell it's a talking point amongst the cast and crew. if you ever watch any of these red carpet things, that's all the cast talks about is how committed Tom Cruise is to in front of the camera effects. And this is no exception. There are some just absolutely awesome set pieces, action set pieces. It's got all the usual hallmarks of a good Mission Impossible movie, good fight scenes and insane stunts made by Tom Cruise. That's what these movies have become to be known for. That's not to say that there weren't some other issues. So, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the craftsmanship. I enjoyed the attention to detail. I enjoyed the sheer insane commitment that Tom Cruise, he really does give it his all. Is it a bit too much? Is it a bit too long-winded? Is it a bit too self-aggrandizing? Yes.
Agreed. It was very convoluted. And right out of the gate, too. I was very disappointed with how this film started. Right from the get-go, it was very self-indulgent. It was very bloated. The narrative was difficult to follow. It was really messy. The writing was poor. The constant flashbacks, my goodness, consistent flashbacks. You could have taken an hour and 30 minutes out of this film if you'd just removed the flashbacks.
Yes.
There's this rule in filmmaking, show, don't tell. And the first half of this film couldn't have gotten that more backwards.
Yes.
It was constantly telling me, explaining to me what it was trying to do as opposed to showing.
Yep.
Really messy. I was really disappointed with the first half of this film.
Yeah, that is an amazing point.
And the flashbacks, please, I watched all 7 films in preparation for this film, not knowing that they were going to show me all 7 films again. Like they were constantly, this is what happened in first movie, this is what happened in third movie, this is what happened in fifth movie, this is what's happening now, this is what's going to happen next, this is what's going to happen if we don't do what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And interwoven in all of that messiness was this love letter to Ethan Hunt about how Americans would cease to exist if it wasn't for Ethan Hunt and all that he has done. It felt like a goodbye in the first half of the film. It felt like a farewell, and I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
And another thing, I expected this film to pick up right where Dead Reckoning left off. I mean, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't do that.
Yeah, it really didn't. And unlike, I think, the other movies in this franchise, this was so weighted down with exposition. I mean, to the point where it's like you're telling us the same shit over and over. Like, we're not idiots, we know. And people as an audience, we either remember what happens in the previous films or we've forgotten and we don't care. So they did some really weird stuff. Like, there was a lot of forced retconning of like, you remember the thing from this movie? Well, really, it's part of this and it's connected. Shut up. Like, just rely on the story that you're trying to tell me, rely on the characters that you've developed to carry us through. And if you've got you don't need to make all these other pieces fit to make this work. And it was trying too much. It was like approaching self-parody in some instances. And some of the dialogue was just freaking cringy. And I just don't know why. Christopher McQuarrie has done a fairly decent job with his installments. And it just felt like whatever vision he might have had was lost, and what took over that was Tom Cruise's drive to just, and Chase has said this before really well, style over substance. So I don't know what happened here.
It's almost like some of the past Mission Impossible films have received criticism for loose ends, and Final Reckoning took it upon itself to go back and fix all those loose ends.
Yes.
Like the explanation of what the rabbit's foot is and this kind of stuff. Yeah, you're right, Kolter. It didn't serve this story, this film, and I found it to just be extremely messy. I was very disappointed in that aspect. The storytelling here, particularly in the first half, was a disaster.
Yes.
I don't use disaster lightly, but that's how it felt to me.
Yeah.
There were sequences in the first half that I really enjoyed.
Yeah,
but
same.
From a narrative standpoint, it didn't work.
Yeah.
I did appreciate, though, the throwback to William Dunlow. If you remember, William Dunlow is the CIA agent from the first film.
Oh, yeah.
They break into the CIA building on William's watch.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And the director says, I want William on the next flight to nowhere within the hour.
Right.
I did think that was a really cool and funny piece to the story.
Yeah, it was interesting and a kind of an unexpected surprise.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. I thought it was really funny.
Yeah, of all the characters, him.
Yeah. So let's talk about this for a second. The film is action-packed. It is nonstop action all the way through. Boom, 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 from one sequence to the next. Is it so much action that the viewer is unable to connect with the story itself? Is it just too much bloody action?
Pretty quickly for these films, it becomes fatiguing for me. You know, when you know it's a 3-hour film and every 20 minutes there's a life-threatening fight, it just gets a little bit tiring. And it's almost like, come on, you're going to expect me to believe it at this point, and I can't play along for that long.
So the counter argument to that, Chase, would be, well, of course you've got to suspend your belief. This is an action film. We're going to sit down, we're going to eat some popcorn,
Sure.
and we're just going to enjoy the craziness on screen. You've got to suspend your belief.
Yeah. There's the illusion of propelling the story, giving these mini goals, but it doesn't really get anywhere until the very end.
So I agree with you, Chase, and I think that aspect is worse in this film than any of them. I felt like we sit down and immediately there's all this action, boom, 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 but I was never emotionally invested in any of it, and I don't quite know why, because some of the other Mission Impossibles are just as unrealistic, just as unbelievable, and yet I found myself having fun with those. But this one, I was just never engaged. I was never drawn in, and I think it's because the story here was way too messy. I think it relied way too much on its action.
Yes. Also, you just mentioned this, Jordan. You said you had fun with the previous ones. This got so serious. And I get that the circumstances, the stakes are supposed to be so serious, but like, what happened to the fun? Like, there used to be, there are cool set pieces in this, some really great set pieces, but it was just, there were moments where I was like, okay, you're building up to something here. You've established the stakes. You've got all the pieces in place. We know what Ethan has to do, and it's to skirt this, ever so thinning line to achieve this thing to save the world. And there's all these obstacles in his way, and it's fun to watch him navigate that. But then it gets bogged down with this poor editing, and it's poorly paced on top of that. So there's probably a decent movie in here if you cut out 30, even 45 minutes of screen time and make this give it a through line. And it's just weirdly self-indulgent from the get-go. Jordan, you were mentioning this. This is the way it begins. It's like, here's Tom Cruise, and I'm going to hold up the key one more time. Like, we've seen this. Can we get going? Like, I don't need you to show me the damn MacGuffin for the 14th time. Like, I know what's at stake here. We just watched the last movie.
Right.
Yes. I think they were aware that they needed some more of that fun, that it felt too serious. But the way that they tried to put it in just felt so wrong. For instance, the scene with Simon Pegg when he's supposedly dying at the end, and they keep cracking those jokes, and it's like, the movie wants to have its cake and eat it too. Is that what the saying is? Yeah. That's exactly what it's doing, and it just doesn't work. It tries to do two things at once. And
By the way, have your cake and eat it too has never made sense to me. Shouldn't it be,
I don't know,
I want to save my cake and eat it too? Have my cake and eat it too. What does that mean? Where did this come from?
Did I say it right?
You said
I think
it
I
right.
did, yeah.
I'm stupid. Sorry. Someone just mute my mic.
It's all good. So one of the other things that didn't work for me, it's like, we've got the doomsday clock and there's 27 minutes left and Tom Cruise has to do all this stuff still and they got to do this stuff. And it's like, all right, 27 minutes. And then we spend the next 5 hours on airplanes and this and that. And then we cut back. By the time we cut back to the ready room or whatever, it's like, that's right. The end of the world is supposed to still happen. Like, it just, I think that's where a lot of that tension just falls apart. It's like,
it does.
I don't know.
100% Kolter. And piggybacking off of that, how did they know that the entity was going to set off all the world's nukes in 3 days? Like, how did they come across that information? I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. You don't know. No one knows.
I don't know.
Another thing that bugged me here that didn't bug me as much in the other films is the fact that the resolutions to problems come so easy. For example, there's a moment where they're like, oh, how do we talk to the entity? Hey, look over there. There's a box. What's that box do? And then someone's like, oh, that's what Gabriel uses to speak to the entity. And Ethan Hunt's like, oh, I'm going to jump in it. And they're like, no. And he's like, too late. Boom. Door closes. Then he talks and he jumps out and he's like, I know what we're supposed to do.
Right.
Or how are we going to catch the entity? Oh, there's this 5D jump drive. And of course it's impossible technology, but guess what? Luther just cracked the code. He just figured it out. Here it is. And it's like...
And I see stuff like that and I think, how am I supposed to respect a movie that has such little respect for the audience?
Yeah. That's well put.
Ethan Hunt's getting chased by villainous F-16s or whatever, and he jumps out into the middle of the freezing ocean with zero plan, and all of a sudden just, here comes the United States Navy to save him.
Right, yeah.
And it's just these constant... And I know that runs throughout the entire franchise. But for some reason here, it just bugged me more. And I think it's because there was just no build-up to any of it. It was just one impossible problem with an absolutely impossible solution back-to-back for almost its entire runtime. And so, Chase, you said it. It's hard to respect a movie when it doesn't feel like the movie respects the audience.
That's damn well put. Yeah.
That said, guys, we have got to talk about the biplane stunt scene.
Do we have to?
Yeah.
Did you not like that?
I liked it.
In theory, it is such a cool idea.
Yeah, but 3 hours of it, and then on top of that, we've got Gabriel, who is sort of nefarious and straight man, and, borderline boring before. Now he's just a mustache twirling, what? Yeah, I'm going to get you, Nathan Hunt. Like, what happened to the characters that we knew in the other movies? Like, everyone's different.
So I agree. Gabriel, although I liked Gabriel in Dead Reckoning, he was terrible in Final Reckoning.
Yeah.
I know that you didn't like him so much in Dead Reckoning. I agree with you here. He was terrible. But I'm not talking characters. I'm talking about...
Yeah. The stunt.
I'm talking about the stunt.
Sure.
The biplane stunt.
Yeah.
No? Nothing?
No,
it was... It's like Kolter said, 3 hours of it. Like it went on for way too long. And there were some parts in there where, they would go super high up in the air and then do a drop. And it would be zero gravity, and he would move around the plane, and it wouldn't really work like that. It didn't.
But it did work like that. That was a practical stunt. He was doing that. There was no CGI there, except for Gabriel. When Gabriel comes out of the plane,
strapped in.
Of course he's got a safety cord. Of course he's got a safety cord.
What I'm saying is there were parts where he would move from one part of the plane to the other, and it just didn't look right. You could tell that there was a safety cord that was edited out.
This was my favorite stunt in any Mission Impossible movie ever.
And
I thought it was absolutely incredible. I thought it was so cool.
It was cool.
I mean, the story is lame. Gabriel is lame. I get it. Sure. We take all that out. We're talking about Tom Cruise climbing around on the wing of a biplane as it's doing these crazy maneuvers. Yeah. I was in. I thought it was so cool. One of the coolest stunts I've ever seen in any film ever. I thought it was awesome.
It was pretty sick.
Yeah, it definitely is all of that. When they take it for as long as they did, then it starts to lose a little something. The stunts, absolutely, they're amazing and it's captivating. There's a certain part of me that I'm watching and I'm going, holy shit, like he is crazy. And then it takes me out of the movie about what's actually happening in the movie, and I'm just thinking like, how in the hell did they do this, and how much film did they burn? How they pull this off, especially because it went on for so freaking long. It was just...
So I absolutely agree that a better story and a better build-up to the sequence would have made the sequence even more impressive. If I was more emotionally engaged in the story itself, that sequence would have had a bigger impact. I agree with you. But I was blown away by the stunt. I think it was the coolest stunt that I've ever seen in any Mission Impossible film. I thought it alone was worth its ticket price.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool.
It was.
I thought it was cool. I think it should have been cut down a little bit.
Honestly, guys, if they made that one stunt the entire movie, it would have been better.
I will agree with that.
If you're talking about
for sure.
cutting it down, I would lengthen that thing to the entire... A 3-hour film of just Tom Cruise on the wing of a biplane would have been better.
Trying to get the thing, yeah. I think this is the most obvious example of where it feels like they really are kind of trying to build a story, whether you argue it's weak or good, around the stunts themselves and not telling a good story. And they had done a decent enough job of that up until this movie. And the audience hadn't been treated like a bunch of idiots up until this movie. So it was... kind of a weird head scratcher, man.
I was disappointed. The idea that this is the last Tom Cruise Mission Impossible film just makes Final Reckoning even worse, in my opinion.
Sure.
Very disappointed by the film. Let me ask you guys this. What is your favorite Mission Impossible movie out of all of them?
Oh, man. I think I am a little partial to the first one. If that doesn't work, the rest of them don't. I enjoyed Rogue Nation quite a bit. Kind of a good mix of like new characters, old characters, well-paced movie with clever writing, clever dialogue. Jordan, what would you say?
My favorite Mission Impossible is Mission Impossible 3.
Okay, all right. I thought you were going to say 2 for a minute.
No, Mission Impossible 2 is the worst for sure. Mission Impossible 3, I think, is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's not a perfect film. None of them are. But
Sure.
Philip Seymour Hoffman is the best villain. And it feels like there's something at stake here for Ethan Hunt because of his wife, the way they've captured his wife and all of that. I thought the rabbit's foot was rad, and they don't tell you what the rabbit's foot is, which works. It's still very intriguing. I really, really have fun in Mission Impossible 3.
Okay.
It also has the greatest opening sequence of them all. It's my favorite. Love Mission Impossible 3.
Okay.
Well, guys, the time has come. Let's do what Eric Wood would say is the impossible and rate the final reckoning on a scale of 1 to 5.
All right.
Like I said, the issues I have with Mission Impossible are rooted in the franchise, not even the individual movies so much. This movie isn't any different, maybe even worse in some of those areas. So I'm going to go 1 star.
That's brutal, man. I knew you hated it, but
Damn,
1
Jake,
star. Goodness
1
gracious.
star. Man, I would give this movie a 2.5 if it wasn't for some of the absolute spectacle that Tom Cruise brings to the movies, and I know that's a huge part of his filmmaking style. So I'm going to give a 3 for that.
3 stars from Kolter.
So that's where I landed, a 3.
So as I said, the first half of this film is really messy.
Yeah.
It's convoluted. They almost try and make Ethan Hunt a deity in some ways.
Yes.
The way they're just...
Yeah.
It's almost an Ethan Hunt worship service for the first half of this film. The narrative is convoluted and messy, but in the second half, I think it starts to find itself. And I found myself more invested in the second half. The byplay stunt scene was absolutely incredible. I loved that sequence in the film. But overall, you're not going to win me over with special effects alone, even if they're practical. I'm going to give this film 2.5. It is not as bad as Mission Impossible 2, but it's close in my opinion. 2.5 for me, but we want to know, what did you think of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning? Please tell us. So, the writing in Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning sucked. It was really, really bad. And story is really, really important. So this week, I'm going to recommend a film with a fantastic story. We're going all the way back to 2002. This film was directed by Kevin Reynolds. It is called The Count of Monte Cristo. It stars Jim Caviezel, Guy Pearce, Richard Harris, and Henry Cavill. Now, you've probably seen this film, but it is worth going back and watching again. The writing here is fantastic. It's an incredible story. I love this film. And by the way, it's the first film I ever watched with my wife, so it holds a very special place in my heart. Check out The Count of Monte Cristo. Thank you for listening to Faster Film Critic, and please join us next week when we talk one of the greatest films to ever be made, Alfonso Cuarón's 2006 Children of Men. You can also follow us on Letterboxd, Cinetrek, and Instagram. Email us at fasterfilmcritic@gmail.com. Hit us up with questions, comments, feedback, or review requests, and please share this episode with your movie-loving friends.